Hello, Uncle Jim here. I've become a much better investor since I've been selling options. I started out many years ago as just a pure income investor, but once I've added options, I really took it to a whole new level. I'm going to share with you today how I've done that, and I'm also going to share with you my trades. I had one trade in particular this week was probably my best trade ever. So stay tuned. I think you're really going to enjoy what I have for you. Okay, it's hard to believe we're actually in May. It's been kind of a rough start to May too, with the Fed increasing rates yesterday by a quarter point and the market reacting pretty negatively. It's been a pretty rough day or two, and especially for people like me who like to invest in banks. I really like to invest in Schwab and Truist, and they've hit new lows. There's a lot of fear out there. The media is really trying to scare people, as well as some other YouTubers. I've watched a few YouTube videos where again it's fear, 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 fear. My suggestion is to avoid that. When there's a lot of fear, there's usually some good opportunities. I'm going to share with you a trade I did at the end of the video where I've done really well with this particular trade, and again it was on one of the banks. But during these crazy times or during these fearful times, keep in mind it's typically a good time to find some really good opportunities out in the market, and that's what I've been doing. And stick to your goals. Don't jump out of the market. Keep with your plans. Keep with your financial philosophy, how you want to actually invest. The worst thing you could do is get out of the market at this time. It's one of the best times to buy. So that being said, let's jump into the core stuff of this video. Now, at the intro, I mentioned how selling options has really made me a much better investor. And I've been selling options probably going back 12, 13 years. I started with covered calls, but I really didn't know what I was doing. I was just selling covered calls. 3 years ago, I decided to dig deeper, and that's why I started this channel. I really wanted others to learn what I was learning and could go back and follow me and learn from my mistakes versus making all the same mistakes I made. And since then, I've become a much better investor. I've learned to look at companies differently, to dig deeper into the companies, how well they're doing, what's their profits, losses, debts, dividends, are they growing dividends? And, I dig a lot deeper, and I also look for companies that I like and that I want to own for the rest of my life. I'm a income investor. I want to own most of the stocks, again, for life. I want to live off the dividends. I want to live off any income I can produce. And by being able to sell options, it's opened up a whole new revenue stream. I've been able to, bring in quite a bit of premium. I'm getting close to averaging $4,000 a month just in option premium, and then close to $2,000 a month in just dividends. And it kind of changes the whole way you look at things. But again, it all starts with great investment. So that's what I wanted to emphasize. It's really important to pick the right companies and the right ETFs. If you get that right, then you've kind of won half the game. And then once you've picked those right companies, then you can add more bells and whistles, which one is selling options, because options can generate so much income. And you can do it on both sides. So if you're selling calls, covered calls is the only kind of calls I like to sell. I don't sell what's called naked calls where you don't own the stocks. So any calls I'm selling are covered calls. And so when the market's up, it's a really good time to sell covered calls. And now when the market's down, like it's been the last 2 days, it's really good to sell puts and what's called cash secured puts or vertical put credit spreads. I won't go into details about those two, but my emphasis today is to kind of emphasize how those two balance. So on up days you can sell calls, on down days you can sell puts, and what happens is when the market goes up, then your puts become more profitable, and vice versa. When the market goes down, your calls become more profitable, meaning you could potentially close them early. And I've been able to do that in a lot of cases. I've been able to close my calls early, and I've been able to sell my puts early. So it's not that difficult. At first, you have to kind of get used to the terminology, but the point that you can actually sell an option and someone will pay you for the opportunity to either sell you some stocks or to buy some stocks from you is pretty amazing. It's a whole world I didn't know existed until I started selling options. And it also allows you to not just generate extra income, but also, hedge your risks. You can, by bringing in income versus just buying the stock, because if you're just a pure investor, you're just buying stock, selling stock, and maybe earning dividends. But when you're selling options, you have the opportunity to bring in some income before you actually buy the stock. By selling a put, you can bring in some income and it minimizes your loss, or you never get assigned the shares and you can just keep whatever you've brought in premium wise. I do want to kind of slow down here a little bit. I do want to explain a little bit more for those of you who've never watched one of these videos. So with selling options, you're selling contracts to people, again, to either sell you stock or to buy stock from you. So with a call, you're selling an option on stock you already own. You're giving someone the opportunity to buy those shares from you at a certain price, and they'll pay you for that opportunity. So let's just use an example, a $60 stock that you may say, well, I'm willing to sell it at $70, and then you sell a covered call at that $70 strike that you're willing to sell it at, and someone will pay you, a certain amount of premium, maybe $100. So you can add to your income and you can repeat it, so you could sell it with an expiration of a month, and then every month you can continually sell more covered calls as they expire, or you could roll them. Again, I'm getting a little bit more too detailed here, but you get the basic gist. So if you already own stock, you can make income by owning that stock by selling covered calls. On the flip side, if you want to own some certain stocks, like with the banking sector going through what it's going through, some good banking stocks are really at a premium currently, meaning they're really cheap. You can potentially own some stocks at really good values. So you could sell puts, where again you're being paid by someone where they can sell you a stock, and you could say, well, I don't want to buy it until it's this price. So again, if you're using a $60 stock and you want to own it at 50, you could set the strike at 50, and you can determine what expiration you want to do. So again, you could do it on a monthly expiration. I do 2 or 3 month expirations. Again, I never hold them for 2 or 3 months. In a lot of cases, I'm able to roll them or close them before that. But on both sides, you can actually make income selling puts and selling calls, which when you're just doing primary investing, where you're just buying stock and selling stock, you can't do anything along those lines. So it does mitigate the risk. You can bring in some extra cash, and you can actually close the put if you decide you don't want to own that stock. And the same thing with a call. If you don't want those shares called away from you, you can close it, hopefully at a profit, but it gives you more opportunities and more flexibility to determine what you want to do. And it also really opens up a whole new income stream. You can really diversify your income streams. So really you have multiple income streams with your portfolio. You've got dividends that come in, then you've got income or premiums coming from your calls or your covered calls, and you also have income coming from selling your puts. So suddenly, before you had one income stream, and now you have 3 income streams, which really, if you're in or near retirement, or you want some financial independence, it really gives you the ability to do the things you want to do, because suddenly you've got 3 income streams. Now, if you're also doing some kind of consulting like I do, or maybe you're selling stuff on Fiverr, or there's a lot of opportunities. Suddenly you can have 3, 4, 5 income streams, which gives you a lot of peace of mind and a lot of safety, and it kind of frees you to do the things you want to do. So I kind of wanted to give an overview. The fact that you have so much flexibility, you can do things you could not do before with just buying and selling stocks, and it, again, with all the extra income that it brings in, it really does make you a better investor by selling options. And I wish I had learned this many years ago. For those of you who are just starting out, I encourage you to learn this now, because it'll pay dividends, and again, play on words, for many, many years to come. Instead of earning 6 to 8% on a yearly basis, you can increase that to 10 or 12 or 14. and really become a much better investor. So if you're not selling options, I encourage you to really start thinking about it, start digging into it, and it's a great thing to learn. So that being said, I do want to give you a few examples of some trades I did this week and how well I did with one of these trades in particular. So stay tuned. And as always, please hit that subscribe button. If you're curious about my memberships, I do have some memberships. I share all my trades. I share my spreadsheets. And for the more expensive membership, I actually provide coaching, and it's weekly coaching. So people can schedule a meeting with me each week for 15 minutes. It always goes more than 15 minutes. It's usually 30, 35 minutes. But again, I like talking with people. I like spending the time with them and showing them what they can do and hopefully making their lives even better. So with that being said, let's jump into the next part of the video where I'll share with you the trades I've done this week. Okay, let's go ahead and jump into my spreadsheet for this week. These are the 5 trades that I did. 2 of them I believe I did yesterday, and I did 1 today. Here you can see at the top I've got my goals. So I'm trying to earn around 1,000 weekly, 4,000 monthly just for premiums from selling options. And you can see so far this week I've done 1,226, which is a little bit more than my week, what I want to earn for the whole week. So I may do another trade tomorrow or I may not. A lot depends on what happens with the market. So let's go ahead and we'll jump into them. So the first one is Polaris. I've been selling options on Polaris vertical put credit spreads for a while. This one was initiated in 328, March 28th. I rolled it. 95.85 were the 2 strikes. So the short strike was 95, the outer strike was 85. So it has a $10 spread. So I sold the 95, purchased the 85, and the 85 gives you protection on the downside. So if Polaris ever went below 85, I'm protected. I can put it to someone at $85, and because of that, the brokerage doesn't require you to carry as much margin or interest. So if I didn't do it as a vertical put credit spread and I just sold it as a 95 put, then I would need $9,500. Now, due to having this $85 put, I only need $10, the $10 spread times 100 minus any income that I bring in for margin or cash. So I'm not sure I had shared that in other videos, but I wanted to. So originally it was going to expire 5/19, which is a little over 2 weeks from now. So I rolled it. The current price is 108, so you can see it's pretty far outside the money. I kept the same strikes and rolled it out to September 15th. And I brought in $260. Again, here's the required margin. And it's like a 40% yearly return. So that's just taking the return and adjusting it, for the part of the year to come up with 40.2%. So not my best trade, but one really good trade. And again, I really like Polaris. They have the slingshot. They have all the different ATV, I think I said that right, vehicles that you can purchase. I actually played with the idea of doing a slingshot because it's something I could do. I have really bad balance and I've been told to stay off motorcycles, so a slingshot is something I could potentially do. Next was Qualcomm. I had initiated this one back in February 16th. Another roll, 110, 100, and it was again expiring on 5/19, and I rolled it out to 7/21 and kept the strikes 110 and 100. Now it has dropped. I believe it's around 114 currently. It was 116, but I believe it's around 113, 114. I brought in $162. I didn't go out as far, so even though I brought in less, the return was pretty close to what I earned on Polaris. And again, I needed $18.37 in margin or cash in order to make the trade. Next is WSM. This is Williams-Sonoma, one of my favorite companies to trade in. They have no debt. They pay a pretty good dividend. Really well managed and run company. Originally, I had done this trade back in 2/7, the initiation date. So you can see it was expiring 5/19, but I closed it back a couple days ago, so right at the beginning of May. So didn't keep it through the whole expiration. The 2 strikes were 110 and 100, so it looks a lot like you, Qualcomm. Currently, it was at 121. I also think it came down with a bad market the last 2 days. I think it may be around 117. And I kept the same strikes, 110 and 100, brought in $208. Again, $17.91 is what's required cash and margin wise. And this one was a 96% return. So this is one of my best trades. Not the best, and partly because it's only till June 16th. So it's only, I believe at that time, 44 days until expiration. So again, you can potentially do a lot better if you can do a much shorter expiration. Next is PG. This is my only cover call. So I've done mostly vertical credit spreads this week, but I believe it was last week that I did mostly cover calls. And that's what happens. It seems like one week it's just better to do puts, and another week it's better to do calls. So PG, now this I had done the original trade for April 12th, 2022, so over a year ago. And at 160 it expired, or was supposed to, I think that's supposed to be at 519, not 16. 157 is its current price, so it's pretty close to its all-time high. And I rolled it out to 10/20/23, so what is that, about 6 months? A little less than 6 months. And I upped the strike from 160 to 165. And 165 for Procter & Gamble is near its all-time high, so if it gets to that point, I'm pretty confident I can roll it again. I brought in 226, and again, this is for one contract that covered calls. So covered calls can pay really well, especially with companies like Procter & Gamble. Now, this is my cost basis, so I'm basing the yearly return on investment based on the cost basis, which ends up being a 6% yearly return, which for cover calls I do it differently. I try to double the dividend, and the dividend I believe is less than 3%, so I more than doubled the dividend and did quite well. So again, I like to do it slightly different for covered calls. You can definitely make a little bit more money with puts, but you can do quite well with calls. And like I said, that's all I did for many years, going all the way back to I believe 2010. Next, and this is the trade, this is the one I did today, which is one of the best trades. I think it is the best trade I ever did. And it's on Truist, which is one of the banks that's been beaten down. And it's a new vertical put credit spread. 25.15 is the spread, so I sold the 25 put and purchased the 15. Now I believe it's right around almost $27 currently, which $25 for Truist is crazy. It pays at that level like almost a 7.5% dividend, and I think it's, you got to go back 10 years before it even merged with BB&T to get this value. So I do think it's been oversold. I could be completely wrong, and maybe they go out of business. I think that's very doubtful, though. I do feel like a lot of the media, again, is being they're adding too much fear out there. They're scaring people, and I think it's a good opportunity. So at $26.75, but here you can see the premium. It brought in $367 for two contracts, and I've not had anything that high in the past. And again, it expires on 6/16, June 16th, which is I believe 43 days from now, and it was 191% yearly return. Again, for 43 days, if you can earn $367, it just applies the year. So if you can do that 7 or 8 times and bring in $367, which would be really difficult, it's partially because of the craziness related to the banks. I believe Truist hit an all-time low. I think Schwab did too. A lot of the banks were hammered really hard today. So that definitely is probably my best trade ever. I don't ever remember doing anything over 100%, but 191%, I know without a doubt. I've never done anything that high. And again, 1,226 on 6 trades, which is is that 300 per trade? No, not quite 300. It's like 250 or 240 or something like that. So those were the 5 trades I've made. And again, I don't know. I may do one more trade tomorrow. And my goal for May, just like all the other months, is 4,000 for the month. So I'm had a good start, and if I can do another trade tomorrow, I might be at 13 or 14, which may be one of my highest weeks. So, and with the market being down so much, it's been a really good day to sell puts. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed this. Again, if you have questions or comments or disagree with something I've done, please add a comment. I try to answer all my comments. So thanks for joining me, and I hope you have a wonderful day or evening.